Auburn's battle with Texas A&M and Kentucky. Should they be true locks for the Tigers to win?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It is a War Rapport Wednesday with the Mike G of the War Rapport. How many wins does Auburn win this season? We discussed that, but Mike G, y'all did a show recently where you guys did it. Y'all do this every year. The boss, toss, and loss. And so the games, the part of Auburn's schedule that you think are guaranteed wins, you put it under the boss category. The 50-50 toss-up games you put in toss, and then the ones that you think Auburn are going to lose, you put in the loss. I love it. I love it. You were pretty aggressive in favor of Auburn. You were pretty aggressive in favor of Auburn. You've got a lot in the boss category, the guaranteed wins, and we'll jump into that in a second. But earlier in the offseason, I mean, you were pretty critical on this team.
I was.
Where you said, 7-5, 8-4. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you said something around that was the ceiling, if I remember correctly. You've kind of pivoted. I mean, you're pretty high on this team now. What changed in your mind?
Yeah, look, for full accountability's sake, Zach, I thought 7-5 might actually be the ceiling for this team pre-spring. Wow. Now, seeing how they've developed during the spring, and this was after sitting down with Hugh Freeze one-on-one and sitting down with Peyton Thorne one-on-one and sitting down with coaches one-on-one and hearing how things are different and how they've developed, and then seeing that not only in the 8A game, but also in the scrimmages and the reports that we've been getting from practices, the addition of Keandre Lambert-Smith, the emergence of Perry Thompson and Malcolm Simmons during the scrimmage that we watched, Zach, remarkable. I'm a lot higher. I'm a lot higher on this offense. And in talking to Derek Nix as well, too. So, yes, I have gone from 7-5 to potentially 9-win season here. But yeah, it's about the improvement that Hugh Freeze was able to get out of his squad from the time that we made that segment until now. It's been pretty remarkable. And he hung his hat on this. He said, look, I'm a developer of QBs and a builder of programs, and I do it quickly. So I'm holding him to his word here and believing that this thing has turned around and that fans should see a marked improvement on offense, especially this fall.
Yeah, and there's other teams in the conference now that I think as we learn more about them, it's like, I think Auburn improved more than Texas A&M this offseason. I think Auburn improved more than Oklahoma. And so
how people are so high on Texas A&M, Zach, baffles me. Right?
Yeah, that and Oklahoma is interesting to me. I'm with you. All right, so I want to put this up. This is from the War Rapport, and this is your predictions of boss, toss, and loss. So the boss, you've got New Mexico, Cal, Arkansas, Alabama A&M, Kentucky, Vandy, ULM, and Texas A&M. For the losses, you have Georgia and Missouri. And then for the tosses, the 50-50 games, you've got the Iron Bowl and then Oklahoma. I certainly agree with a lot of this. But the one that stood out to me, the boss, which is, y'all are saying is a guaranteed win, right? I just want to make sure the terminology is correct. So you've got Kentucky, road game to Kentucky, and then obviously the home game against Texas A&M. You've got those as guaranteed wins. Why?
Auburn's going to get one on the road. They're not going over on the road, right?
I agree with that.
If you've got Alabama, you've got Georgia on the road, and you've got Missouri on the road, all teams that finished in the final top 10 of the AP last year, who are you going to pick there? For me, it's Kentucky. Look, Hugh Freeze has improved this squad. I think that he's approved them above the level where we should expect a road loss at Kentucky. He's got to get one on the road this year. I think that Kentucky's the game. Now, I know a lot of people will challenge me and say, well, that's the definition of a toss-up game. I'm saying no, absolutely not. He's got to get that one on the road. He will get it on the road. So I'm putting Kentucky in the boss call.
Yeah, this feels similar to when Auburn went to Fayetteville last year, where it's like, okay, a lot of people really liked Arkansas going into last season because of KJ Jefferson, and people love Sam Pittman. Still, I love Sam Pittman. Don't know if he's a great coach, but I like Sam Pittman. But you look at it, it's a similar thing with Stoops. And I think the view of Kentucky is a little inflated because they've benefited from being like the okay team in the SEC East when a lot of the SEC East teams have been bad. There's no divisions anymore. They've got to play everybody. And I just think when you look at Kentucky's schedule, they host South Carolina. Okay. They host Georgia. They go to Ole Miss. No way. They host Vandy. Sure. The week before they go to they host Auburn, they go to Florida. Like, I don't think Florida's a great team, but I do think from a roster standpoint, they're better than Kentucky.
Tough. They're tough now. They've got the hardest schedule in college football, but they're tough, Zach.
Yeah, this is going to be Florida's sigh of relief at home is when they host Kentucky. And then obviously, Auburn will play Kentucky the following week. But then they go to Tennessee, they go to Texas, and then, we'll see what happens when they play Louisville. But this is a team that I don't think is going to do well this year. And I just have a feeling that the national or conference-wide perspective on Stoops and Kentucky as a whole kind of takes a step back after this season when they actually have like an SEC legitimate schedule, because this isn't an easy schedule.
Kentucky is one of those teams, Zach, that every once in a while they have one of those great seasons where you feel like they're on the brink, and then right when you get your hopes up, the very next season they disappoint you. I have absolutely no faith.
But when they have to play real teams.
Yeah. Look, I mean, the SEC is obviously a monster where you're going to see real teams, like you said, week in and week out. But I believe that Hugh Freeze has improved this squad enough that we can expect them to go down to Lexington and get a win. I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. Now, we've seen last year when Hugh Freeze called plays, or so we've been told, it looked markedly better. Now you've got Derek Nixon there. You've got an improved Peyton Thorne. And I'll tell you, if anything has my confidence sky high that Auburn should and will go into Lexington and get a win versus Kentucky, it's Peyton Thorne's confidence in what they're doing now. He absolutely blew me away in our one-on-one. We sat down at Vintage 2298 over in Auburn, and he shared.
What'd you eat? What'd you eat there?
I had the steak. Well, we both had steak. Peyton had steak, yeah. And man, let me tell you, these guys can eat. We did Hank right after him. I did both of them on the same day, and those guys put down some steak, man. But I love it. Even in talking to Hank as well about the marked differences from last year to this year, it's crazy how much more confident these guys sound. And so, look, I'm riding with them. Hugh Freeze has told us, I think he's been really, really honest. If you think about the things that he said in the media, there's not been a lot of fluff or coach speak in there. It's been exactly what he said it was. Last year around this time, he told us Peyton Thorne was pressing. This year, he's acting like he's the most confident he's ever been in any quarterback. Yeah. And I believed him last year, so I'm going to believe him this year.
Yeah, I also think it's encouraging now. Wouldn't have been encouraging if they did this a year ago, but whenever you asked about the changes in staff, I mean, these quarterbacks just totally light up, whether it's Hank,
they do,
whether it's Peyton, they don't really hold a lot back. And, we're not asking super pointed questions here, but it does seem significantly better than a year ago. And the dude who's not getting any real credit here in all this is Ken Austin, who is, every quarterback that I talk to about Ken Austin, they light up and they say, wow, this guy's so smart. He's such a gifted communicator and a coach and a motivator. And it sounds like he just gets it. And I think elevating him is naturally going to help with all this too. And so, the combination of him, Derek Nix, and Hugh Freeze, that's a strong offensive combination there. I want to,
Zach, let me add this about the quarterbacks, right? And that's encouraging to hear about Ken Austin. Obviously, we knew that as well, but the quarterbacks are spending way more time with them than they are with Hugh Freeze right now. And so you want that to be the case. Hugh Freeze is trying to balance the CEO role and continuing to recruit with being hands-on enough and learning from maybe some of those mistakes of last year where he got hands off a little bit and maybe things didn't go the way that they should have gone. That's how you lose to New Mexico State, in my opinion, right? You get a little too hands off thinking that it's a guaranteed and some things got away and it wasn't done totally his way. Obviously, they fired Phil Montgomery in the offseason. So, I'm encouraged to hear what you're saying about Ken Austin because those guys are tied to him right now and he is responsible for their development and their improvement, and it seems like it's happening.
No question. All right, so I want to jump into why is this game against Texas A&M a guaranteed win in your book? Because nationally, it's become really trendy to pick the Aggies over Auburn. So that's coming up in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Mike G, let me ask you this question.
Yes, sir.
When you buy a ticket, do you want it to be more where you're buying it or less where you're buying it?
More.
You want to pay more for tickets?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. Let's do that over. Let's do that over.
You don't want to spend more money.
No.
You want to be more complicated or less complicated? I know you're going to get this one right. I know you're
less complicated.
Game Time definitely makes that happen. They've got Game Time picks, curation to make it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, the theater, whatever it might be. You also get a panoramic view. I almost butchered that word. Get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Had a DM from a listener last night. Hey, what's the Game Time promo code? It is Locked On College. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Let's jump into this Texas A&M matchup because I think you've seen the same thing. Like anybody who's rolling out these national predictions or predictions at the national level, I'm seeing most people have Auburn losing to Texas A&M at home. And I'm going to be honest, like I don't get this one. I get the argument for Oklahoma more so than Texas A&M. This one's tricky to me. And I feel like I'm on an island here. Clearly I'm not, because you have this as a guaranteed win.
Look, the optimism around Mike Elko going to College Station, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't be high, but I think it's being a little overplayed. Now, we saw that no matter how many 5-stars you have, you can absolutely coach them down. I think that there's been some real dysfunction in Texas A&M for a lot of years there, right? And have they fixed that enough that those guys are going to come into Jordan-Hare and get the win? Now, same energy I have for the road games, right? Like when you look at Auburn's home schedule, right? We're counting Alabama A&M as a win. We're counting Cal as a win, hopefully, right? Like I hope nobody out there thinks Auburn's going to lose to Cal at home, right? Then you've got New Mexico.
I haven't seen that. I'm sure they're out there, but I haven't seen that prediction publicly yet.
Right. Then you've got New Mexico. Then you've got Arkansas. And then you've got Oklahoma, which I think is a true toss. I put that in my toss column because I think that Auburn's season, the direction it goes hinges on that Oklahoma game. You win that one, you go into Georgia undefeated. You've got a real chance to hit the over, which Vegas said at 7.5. Now, you don't play a home game, in the month of October, which really sucks. Hugh Freeze talked about this. This is your best weather for football, and you've got Georgia, Missouri, bye week in Kentucky, right? Then you come home and you've got Vandy and ULM. And, everybody expects them to get those games. But look, I would say of all the home games outside of Oklahoma, Texas A&M is probably Auburn's realest opponent, right? Outside of Oklahoma. The rest we're expecting to be guaranteed wins. So you're going to tell me Auburn's going to navigate this whole schedule and possibly not have one solid win at home. Not one. Come on, man. They're going to beat Texas A&M. And I think that Hugh Freeze has got his program in better position right now in year 2 than Texas A&M is after just firing Jimbo Fisher. So, it's one thing to talk about talent, but the dysfunction that goes on behind the scenes is not always fixable in one offseason. It's not. And maybe by the end of the season, they have this together. I'm not saying that Auburn is going to run Texas A&M off the field, but I don't see Auburn losing this game. I think they're going to get a really good win at home. I think the Texas A&M is it.
Could that be Auburn's biggest win of the season?
I think Oklahoma would be the biggest win of the season. I'm stuck between Oklahoma and Texas A&M. But
the issue with Oklahoma is when Auburn beats them, it'll look good. Maybe. I think there's a chance that they lose to Tennessee the week before. And
they've got the schedule.
They've got a brutal schedule.
They got a brutal schedule.
There's a very real chance that they start 0-3 in conference. And then from a resume point of view, it's of course Auburn beat Oklahoma. they weren't ready for the SEC. And to me, I don't like, it might mean more because that's the first like marquee win for Freeze.
Right.
But when it's all done, like Auburn, Texas, Tennessee, they go to Ole Miss, they go to Missouri, they host Alabama, they go to LSU. At the end of the year, we may be looking at Oklahoma as a 6-6, 7-5 team. And it's like, who cares? Who cares that you beat Oklahoma?
Yeah, I read somewhere where a popular ESPN personality was saying that Oklahoma fans better get ready for 7 or 8 wins. And, listen, it's going to be tough. But I think if they get to that 8-win mark, it's going to be a respectable win. Most people understand what Oklahoma is up against in this first year in the SEC. Yeah. So even if the record doesn't look great at the end of the year, Zach, I believe that it's going to be a respectable win on Auburn's schedule. They're coming to the Plains for the first time in history. There's going to be a lot of hype around this game. If they so happen to both be 4-0 headed into that game, you're going to see unprecedented levels of hype for this game, because the winner has a chance again to make sure that their season continues to trend the right direction. Oklahoma with the tough schedule, and then Auburn, coming off a home stretch, which is terrible for fans, by the way. Five straight home games is terrible for fans. Right. I hope that doesn't happen again. But, a month on the road is also not great. And, even though I put Kentucky in the boss column, if you lose to Oklahoma, then you possibly have a month where you don't win a game, because you've got to go on the road to Georgia. You've got a bye week. You've got to go on the road to Mississippi, right? To Missouri. And, those teams look to be formidable. Brady Cook and Luther Burden are probably going to be one of the most prolific wide receiver QB combos in the country. I expect them to give Auburn some trouble. Look, they played Georgia really tough last year, if you remember that game in Athens. And so, like I said, I go back and forth about it, but I really am leaning Texas A&M here in terms of Auburn should beat them. It's going to be a really good win on their schedule. And we'll see with Oklahoma, with the schedule that they have in the beginning, Zach, you hope that everything is sorted out by the time you get to Oklahoma. But just in case they're not, I put that in the toss column.
Yeah. The timing of the Oklahoma game, I think, is ideal for Auburn. I've been pretty consistent with that. And especially now because of seeing where Auburn is now that fall camp is done, they're just so far ahead of where they were a year ago. And you just think about, it doesn't look like the same program. It's insane, both physically and as far as execution goes. It's just everything about it is just so much farther along. And I think Auburn's going to benefit from that, because still people forget Oklahoma's replacing an entire offensive line. They've got a new quarterback, and this is their first road game. There's no other tests. They've got to go to Jordan-Hare to do that. And I just think that's going to be a big deal.
Jackson Arnold they picked up? Jackson Arnold?
Yep.
Norman, yeah.
Yep. And I think he's talented. Don't get me wrong. I think he's talented, but it's just, you can't replicate that. And we've been talking about offensive line communication from an Auburn point of view just because of some of Freeze's comments lately, but it's going to be hard for that offensive line to communicate, especially with the way that this defensive front for Auburn has been portrayed over the last 2 or 3 weeks of camp. I just think that's a really strong potential mismatch. And so, the more I talk about this game, the more I think, Auburn should beat Oklahoma at this point.
Yeah, will they be ready for the environment that's going to be Jordan-Hare? Like I said, I expect Auburn to be 4-0 going into that game. I know you do too. And once they get here, they're going to be met with something that not necessarily that they haven't seen before, because they played in raucous environments, but it hits different down on the Plains. When we went to Media Day, Zach, and you were there with us, you heard player after player from other teams, when asked, said Jordan-Hare is the hardest place to play in the SEC.
Yeah,
right. Now, look, I'll never take the title of toughest home environment from LSU, because I believe night games at LSU are just built different. But it was interesting to hear these players from Georgia and Ole Miss and all these other teams say, yeah, man, when we got to go down there, their fans are nuts.
And also, let's keep in mind, the players that were being interviewed at Media Days have never played a good Auburn team.
Right. Yeah. And they still
imagine once we get this thing rolling again.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. That's actually a great point. So imagine, again, a 4-0 Auburn going into that game.
Yeah.
Right. Like, the game's already sold out. The university sent us the email, Zach.
Mm-hmm.
The game is sold out. We're giving away 2 tickets to that game. To that game. We give away 2 tickets to every home game. So tune in if you want to win some tickets.
Yeah,
but like,
for sure.
I'm telling you, it's going to be probably one of the more prolific days on the plains here in the lead up too. And I think Hugh Freeze is going to be ready for it. He knows that this game is pivotal. It's been repeated over and over again in the media. When I went on Feinbaum, he asked me about this game. Everybody has asked me about this game. And I'm telling you, ESPN is going to be gearing up to broadcast this thing nationally and pump it up. And I think Auburn needs to be ready on this stage. If you're Hugh Freeze, what a great, to cap this, Zach, what a great recruiting tool for you.
Mm-hmm.
To have Oklahoma come into your house, you beat the hell out of them. And, you go into Georgia undefeated, man. Come on, dude. This guy's already tearing up the recruiting trail.
Yeah, that will be a big, I'm going to predict that's going to be a big visit weekend for sure. For sure. All right. It's good to have you back on. I've missed you so much. How can people check out everything you've got going on?
Going over to YouTube and search the War Report. We got lots of great building rapport segments coming in. So I know you have Jake Crane on. We also have him on as well, too. Cole Kublik, Heather Dinich will be joining us from ESPN. So lots of great stuff coming for you guys there. Follow us on socials, every single social media platform. TW Report on TikTok. We're at the War Report.
Yeah, hey, be sure to like the video. Please subscribe. Also, check out thebarnauburn.com. I drop nuggets there all the time. And, be sure to check that out. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.